Well, hey guys, we made it. It's not 10:30. It's not 2 o'clock. It's not 2:15 or 2:20. It's even not 2:30. It's 2:35. But we made it. We're here. So thanks for hanging out. We're going to get our final stuff set up, and then we'll be going live with the podcast in just a minute. Whatever word I just said, I meant podcast. Vodcast. Video on demand podcast, maybe? I don't know. All right. Do not disturb everybody if you want it. You ready to start recording your audio? We're going to actually all record it this week. I'm just going to keep saying that until it actually happens.
Let's see.
Chris, it got dark in your room. Did you just change something?
I did 10 minutes ago. Yep.
Well, I
Does it
was
look bad?
watching it, so. No.
Does it look bad?
We
No?
just have so much diversity. It's like Chris in a dark room, Dave in a half-lit room, me in a yellow, like, fake lighting room, and Elliot with, like, actual daylight is what it looks like to me.
Daylight, yeah. It's daylight.
I love it. All right. Does everybody have their recording open? Elliot,
Yes.
do you have
Yeah.
your recording open and recording? Chris, do you have your recording open and recording? Dave, do you have open recording and recording?
I do. Yes.
Ready? Everybody ready to clap? Oh, hold up. Elliot, are you wearing headphones, or can I see them? Just not see them?
My bad.
Ooh, that could have been bad.
Dang.
That could have been so bad.
We wear headphones because everything echoes in the recording later on. Sometimes it doesn't live, but it will later on.
That's. You guys.
That
got
wasn't
the
for you, Elliot. I know you know that. That was for everybody else.
Mm.
All right. Got headphones. We're all still recording. Sometimes when you make a headphone switch, it stops the recording, Elliot. You want to double check it?
It's not recording what?
Sometimes when you plug headphones in,
Mm-hmm.
not always.
Oh, the voice memos?
Yeah, sometimes.
Oh, no, it's still rolling.
Oh,
All right. Ready, clap?
maybe that's what happened to me last.
Mm.
Okay.
That's my theory of what happened last week.
Yes.
All right, ready? Oh, who's that? Are we okay?
I hear it.
Someone's echoing.
Echoing.
It might be me. Is it me? No, I don't think it's me.
Went away?
I had
Go away?
my phone had.
Oh,
trying
it's your phone. Okay.
I was trying to share our thing, and I think it sounded off.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. All right, clapping on clap, like rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right, 3, 2, 1, clap. Ah,
Chris,
that looks
man,
smooth.
What's up, brother?
No, his
Yeah.
looked good to me.
Oh man, I thought he was late.
Okay, we'll try it again just in case. Ready?
Uh-oh.
3, 2, 1, clap.
Okay, good.
Now Elliot looked late to me. We'll see what happens in post-production.
Y'all know that's not how it works, right? You always say that. Like, no, that's not how it works.
It's the internet's fault.
No, I
Just
know.
saying.
I know. I do know how it actually works, but all I'm using it to is to help me find the point to get us close together so I could sync it. So it's not actually a science. It's more of a, it's not an art either. I don't know. But all right, I think we're ready to go. Anyone need anything else?
I'm good.
Got any candy?
You're the one who always has the candy, remember?
Mmm.
Or
Yeah.
Julia's desk. You could just raid Julia's desk real quick.
No, that's for welcoming new people. I shall not steal from the new people.
All right, well, I'm going to steal a line from Chris. This is bad content. Let's do it.
You know what?
That's Chris's line. All right, ready, set, podcast time. Well, y'all, thanks for tuning in. This is Sunday Recap, the weekly edition of the Grace Bible Church podcast, where we talk about life and faith based off of our sermon this past Sunday. For more sermons, for recordings of our podcast, visit bgrace.org/podcast. To submit any questions or comments you might have, visit bgrace.org/podcast also. I messed that up. I don't know. I got lost. I started thinking about what was next, and what's next is our names. Well, I'm Joey Colon.
I'm Elliot Crawford.
I'm Chris Webster.
I'm Dave McMurray.
Well, this week we're back talking about our series Stories of the King, where we know and see especially now around us, a world that is broken, and we want to learn more about the real, true King who came to save this broken world. And so we're trying to encourage people to practice storytelling, and so each week Dave is kind of retelling a story of Jesus. We're combining that with our kids' story from the Jesus Storybook Bible. But this week is about the King of Compassion, and you talked about that from Matthew chapter 14. I guess second half of chapter 14, looking at Jesus going to be alone, and then what? He goes to a desolate place, and crowds, crowds chase him, and they have no food. It's basically the story of the loaves and the fish, right?
The feeding of the 5,000, the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. But I always want to say fishes, but yeah.
Fishes.
I
Well,
prefer
Texas fish.
the story of the stolen lunch in honor of Dave.
Story of the stolen
the
lunch.
borrowed lunch.
I made a slip during the evening service that they beat up a little boy and stole his lunch.
a
A little
slip.
bad exegesis there.
It's more than
Was
more
that
than a
ISIS?
slip.
Yeah. Like, okay, not really. But it sounds funny.
Eusegesis.
We had a talk at lunch that fishes is what King James says, so that's probably where you got it.
That's right. I knew there was like an audio echo in my brain.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
Are you like a King James only guy? No, just one.
I'm
Just
not.
at
but
lunch,
I,
that's
I
what
just knew
somebody
I
said.
heard it. I'd heard it somewhere. Yeah. That's so
We
weird.
were having
Okay.
lunch, and someone around my table said, "Well, it makes sense that he thought fishes, because that's what King James says."
There we
Oh
go.
wow, they was a King James only then, probably.
Yep.
It slipped out of me.
All right. Well,
James saith.
do we need to summarize the story anymore, or does everyone in the world know when you say the story of the loaves and the fish? Everybody knows that's the story we're telling.
I don't know. Somebody want to summarize it? You got
I thought
mostly through it.
you just
Yeah,
did.
he summarized the beginning of it. What happened after they stole the little boy's lunch? Anyone?
He gave it to them.
Yeah.
Sorry. What happened after he took and received the little boy's lunch?
All the disciples, they got them and they start passing them out, and they had leftovers.
That's right.
And everyone was satisfied.
Everyone was satisfied.
And I know we say the 5,000, but it had to be like
Mm,
what 10,000? I mean,
10, 15, 20.
it was
Yeah.
a ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
That's really funny because I just realized something weird growing up. When they said they had 12 baskets left over, I, for some reason, imagined like half-eaten baskets full.
Of like scraps?
Like they took bites and like threw it in the basket. Pretty sure that's not true either, but that's what I
It was
thought growing
just
up.
like
It was
the pizza crust, but there was no pizza left.
That's right.
So I always imagine tall laundry baskets that are like 3 feet tall. I don't know
Yep.
why. I think I saw a
That's
picture of
correct.
something like that in a Sunday school book or something.
That is what they were. That is
Yeah.
what they were. Yep. Or the snake charmer type of basket.
Snake
You
charmer
could do
basket,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I don't think the
It's
Bible
not
tells us that stuff.
No.
Laundry baskets, bro.
I guess I
So
always thought
plastic
like big
stuff.
bread baskets or fruit baskets, like
Oh,
big,
yeah, yeah.
round.
Like one of those cornucopia things?
No.
No.
No, never thought that.
No,
Elliot, do you
that
have a
is too
basket
far.
picture in your brain? What do you picture when you see 12 baskets full?
I think, to be honest with you, I thought like Chris. I thought it was like a bunch of leftovers, like literally leftovers. Like I'm full and I'm just putting it back.
Yeah. Had a bag. I put the rest of it down. Yeah.
I did. I never even thought that maybe it was just actual additional fish that they just didn't eat.
Like, y'all ever seen this with youth? This reminds me of the youth drinking phenomenon where teens only drink half a drink and then they leave 1,000 half-empty cups and bottles everywhere. It
Oh,
drives me
yeah, that
crazy.
happens-
I'm
that
like,
happens
finish
often.
your drink. Drives me nuts.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
youths.
Youths.
Is it you youths?
Youths.
You made it sound like a YouTube thing. Like they make videos of themselves half drinking stuff. It's a phenomenon.
This viral phenomenon.
It's
of
a
kids who
challenge,
can't finish
actually. Yeah.
It's a challenge.
their- Don't finish your drink challenge.
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, without
Sorry.
Jim and Kendrick, we're lost.
Yes, good.
All right. So that's the story from Matthew 14 that we're talking about to look at and see compassion. What are your 3 main points, Dave?
Funny you should ask. They are: compassion is painful, compassion defies common sense, and compassion overflows.
Anything we need to know about your choice of sermon or main points before we start talking about them applicationally?
I don't know. Not necessarily. I think they're self-explanatory.
Thanks, brother. My brother just texted me that... Sorry, not you. My actual brother. My brother just texted me that the Facebook caption says that this is gathered worship.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we know.
Tell him refresh. Tell him
We
refresh.
know.
He said refresh.
He's behind the times, man. That changed
No, we,
5 minutes ago.
We were having trouble connecting it to our event, so we just went to our mainstream, and then Chris probably renamed it. But renaming sometimes takes a minute, and stuff's weird. But thanks, friend.
Yeah.
All right.
Tell us live.
Compassion is painful. Compassion defies common sense. Compassion overflows, and all of it was in context of Colossians 3.
Yeah, I just threw out Colossians 3 as a command where he says, put on as God's chosen ones that are holy and beloved, so as his loved children, so because of our adoption, because he's shown compassion to us, put on compassionate hearts and kindness and humility and meekness and patience, etc. So that's one of the clear, there are other places you can go to in the New Testament, but that's a nice crystal clear command to do compassion like Jesus because he did compassion towards us. So then that was kind of the setup, like, all right, he's told us to do this. Jesus showed compassion to us. We got to show it to others. Let's see how Jesus does it.
So was a compassion sermon on your flow chart for what was next, or did you adjust based off of what's going on in the world?
Oh,
That's a good question.
It was already in the flow.
No, I don't believe it.
Yeah, so I went through and I picked. You'll notice I'm not going in scripture order. I'm actually going in the Jesus Storybook Bible order. I'm following the stories. So I'm not using every single New Testament story, but the stories I'm using, I'm just going through in order from the Jesus Storybook Bible.
Okay.
How about
That was very
So yeah, it was
timely.
very, very timely. Yeah, I thought so.
I guess I'll trust you that it was in your flow chart. But, just kidding. I don't know. I feel like it's a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
Today, yesterday, probably tomorrow, probably every day, all the time. Which seems extra relevant this week. This week. When is this week? When did this week start? When does it end? I don't even know.
Hard to say.
All the days are blurred together. Well, let's talk about your main points. You want to talk about them? Talk about them?
So
No?
much. Compassion is painful.
You guys are so
Great.
energetic in the afternoons. I thought I'd get a more energetic you.
To be fair,
I'm ready to go.
you keep
I'm just-
correcting yourself 3 times, so we don't know when the question is.
Who, me?
Talk
The
about
pause.
them or talk about them. I will talk about them. I don't know about talking about them. But either way, I'm in. I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Okay,
ready.
you guys go ahead then. I'll be quiet.
First point, compassion
Point
is
one.
painful.
Well, Dave,
Anybody
first,
remember where I
Dave,
got that
before,
from? Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
before you do, your definition of compassion, obviously you kind of went through the Greek aspect of it. Man, did you find? I know you studied before. Did you find it like reinvigorating? Like, wow, man, this really getting to the guts of it. No pun intended.
Pun was intended.
Man,
You gotta always say no.
It- this has been, I think, one of the hallmarks of my ministry. So I think this is coming back to me. I almost feel like I was coming back to a hobby horse. So it's weird when you preach in the same place for 14 years. You feel like I've said this 1,000 times, but it's clean, so everybody comes and goes. So nobody's really heard what I've said before. So I feel like I've said this already a million times, and it's really important to me. So yeah, I would say for me, pretty old. I was excited about it and felt like this is really needed right now. But yeah, this is probably a core value for me.
That's funny that you say that. It felt fresh to me. So maybe it's just the different angle or different circumstance. But yeah, I mean, I can see what you're saying about, you say this type of thing. But yeah, man, in our current current moment and
Yeah.
current series. I think it hit well. So
Well, good. Good.
Yeah, it really did.
it didn't feel like, oh, here goes Dave again.
Good.
I think it made me when I heard you define it, especially with the first point of being painful. But when you described it as like that gut reaction, pretty much made me think like when do I not have that gut reaction? Because that's the problem. Like when do I see something and I don't have that gut, man? And that's where you got to like inventory yourself. Say, why don't I feel that?
Yeah. Well, and I tried to get to that a little bit. Like, yeah, if you don't feel it, why not?
Yeah.
And I gave a couple of reasons I see in people. I'm sure it was not exhaustive at all, but yeah, one is an issue we've seen a lot in the current issue with criminals being treated brutally, or even suspects being treated brutally. Either way. But it's excused if they're a criminal or if they have a criminal background, or like, oh, if someone's a bad person, we can abuse them. And you're like, wait, no, that's not how our criminal justice system works or how our faith works. That's not how it's supposed to work. That's been one of the most bizarre, I think, reactions I've seen come out of the debates over policing. So yeah, I just tried to reemphasize we all deserve dignity because we're made in the image of God. So we show dignity to everybody, whether they're criminals or good citizens. And then really none of us deserves compassion. We show compassion because Jesus showed compassion to us. So that's where it gets confusing, defining biblical justice and mercy. So Christians are commanded to do something that people don't deserve, right? And so that then our language kind of gets mixed up. And that's part of why people debate even the phrase social justice. Like, well, if you're showing mercy, can you call it justice? That's like a logical violation, and people's heads start smoking. I'm like, who cares? Like, get over yourself,
I guess when I think about that, Dave, I'm always wondering, like, how do you show mercy to nobody? Everything you're going to do is going to have to be social. Like, so the very nature of justice and mercy is a social thing. You have to do it to somebody.
Right,
so it's just kind of like a weird way to think about things.
Yeah,
I think that the American definition can twist people up, but just the nature of just doing justice and mercy is just social in and of itself. So
yeah, it's always if you're doing anything towards another person, it's always social by definition.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, social justice.
Yeah, I think there's rarely, if ever, been a time where over and over and over again we're having to face it in a concrete way, maybe inside the church, I should say. But that idea, it brings me to the idea of the story of the Good Samaritan. I saw someone try to make a modern rewrite of that. All these people that agree with you passing by the person that you hate, and then someone you hate stopping. Not anyway. Just over and over again. I think the question of how do you love your neighbor in a specific way, and then even more than that, how do you love your enemy in a specific way? And I think the thing a lot of us has unintentionally done is say, love my enemy's great, but love someone who's thinking illogically, or I think is thinking illogically. Nope. Love someone who is wrong. Nope. And again, that's all defined by the current moment of what I think you're saying is wrong, and I don't need to love you. And again, all of our opinions, basically, if you don't align with me, I don't have to love you. And I think this is a very poignant moment of over and over and over again, we're having to say, well, do we believe in that scripture of love your enemy? And how did we define that in the past, and how do we define that now? And I think it was like, oh yeah, if someone's like, I don't know what we were thinking in our heads. Oh, if someone's trying to kill me, that enemy, okay, then I gotta love him. But if it's someone who disagrees with me politically, that's not my enemy, so I don't have to love you. But Jesus says neighbor and enemy. So it's like, well, all of the above.
So everybody, you have to love everybody.
Yeah.
That's good, man. Oh, okay. Are we on the first point? I'm lost. So I'm sorry.
I don't know if we've actually started the first point or not, but
yeah, the first point was at the bottom of the first point was why don't we do compassion? So Elliot, you brought up, why don't we do compassion? Why don't we feel
okay.
compassion?
Yeah,
and I was saying, well, in the sermon I said, one of it is we don't see people as deserving compassion. But I was like, well, we never deserve compassion, really. You know, like, so either we always deserve compassion because we're made in the image of God, or we never deserve compassion because we're all sinners. But there is no, either one, it's an all category, right? So either we never deserve compassion and we get it because God is compassionate and we're supposed to do it to others, or we all deserve compassion because we're all made in the image of God. So either way, like theologically, you either have to root it in the image of God and the dignity all people are owed, or you root it in the gospel. We all deserve wrath, but we get God's grace and mercy instead through the cross. So that's what we're supposed to extend to people. So either way, you're not allowed to like categorize people and go, oh, they deserve it, they don't, you know, like we're just not allowed to do that.
Man, I'm seeing that so much, lately. It's this idea. No one won't flat out say it's about them deserving it, but their words and their actions speak of that. And it's really disappointing because even when I think about, how we all have Christ have saved all of us, we all committed a crime against God, like the greatest crime.
Yeah.
So we were all criminals. We were all guilty, and He still showed compassion on us. And so it just boggles my mind as other believers, I've seen them just show so much lack of compassion, of saying like, hey, well, this person mouthed it off at a police officer, or they actually was this bit do a crime, and their life basically it really doesn't matter. That's not that's not how God works. That's not how He operates. So it's just that part is hurtful. So I'm glad that you brought this up, man, because it's so true and needed for today.
Yeah. The other thing I think that causes people to resist compassion is just childhood hurt, painful past. So we wall ourselves off. I think I did that somewhat as a young man. So because you've been hurt, you kind of you go through life walled off from people, like not wanting to feel too deeply other people's emotions or your own emotions. And so if you can tamp those things down, then you won't feel as bad as you did before. And I think that's a defense mechanism that we use. Pretty common. I think it's more common with men than women, but I think, all human beings do this. We kind of say, okay, I'm going to shut that off. I'm going to like turn off that switch, and that's going to give me some freedom. And as I've grown in my faith, I'm like, I don't think we can do that. I think we gotta feel that stuff a little bit more.
Are we expecting something in return? Like what would be the fear of like being compassionate? Like what is it, an expectation that they are going to respond the way we want them to, or like I know it's a level of vulnerability, but it seems like it's such a level of service that I'm trying to process and ask questions of why is it so hard, even if it's from your childhood. Like what is do you have an expectation of something? So I'm just trying to ask those kind of questions because I really don't know why is this so difficult. I can see the correlation between like as a child maybe I wasn't shown compassion, so it's hard for me to show it now. But then as a believer and you're transforming, I'm just wondering like is it an expectation that someone is doing that so then they don't do it?
Yeah. Well, I think for a lot of people, so I will speak, I have a lot of friends that are genuinely skeptical of this cultural moment where it feels like symbolic compassion is demanded. So this is part of the weirdness of a social media world where so much is demanded on social media and said on social media that's not, it's like maybe not a real relationship. You don't know people and you're just saying it to look, they call it virtue signaling, like you're just symbolically trying to look compassionate. And so I think there's reason to be skeptical of broadcasting compassion versus
just beating your chest.
Yeah, look at me, I'm so compassionate. I feel so sad. I feel your pain. So I do think there is a lot of that silliness in our kind of celebrity culture and social media culture where we're used to seeing things that are, shallow, I guess. So I do think that makes sense that people would be skeptical of that. They just need to be careful to not be so skeptical that they don't actually show real compassion, right? Like we're still called on to show compassion. So maybe you don't like the medium, but you still got to show compassion to people, period.
Okay.
Well, I guess I'm wondering, so compassion is painful is your first point, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, you talked about the pain of like the gut-wrenching feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and then the pain of it like, I guess, being difficult.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is there other pain involved? Like, I don't know that either of those really feel too painful to me. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I think just the setup of Jesus' schedule was interrupted. Jesus needed some alone time. He lost his alone time. Also, he healed them, and I tried to spend a little time on just unpacking when we heal people, even Jesus, God in flesh, 100% divine, it still takes a toll on him. Jesus, as you follow Jesus through the Gospels, Jesus got tired, he got weary. It sapped him to be serving people. So I was just trying to really come at it from a just basic human, who we are as humans, like healing, serving, showing compassion, wears us out, uses up our resources. That's just part of it.
I'd say too, I don't know that you touched on it much in the sermon, but we don't know how long it took the disciples to pass out the food. How long does it take to pass out to 10,000 people or whatever? And they were exhausted already, like you said. It's probably the end of the day, and it's like, so that I think that's another one that's in the text really is like they went and passed it out, and so they could have said again, maybe to put it in modern terms, like these people need to get it for themselves, like they need to do the work. Again, I don't know exactly how they passed it out, but it did take efforts of some kind. I think, it was so well put, I think, because saying compassion is painful gets at exactly what you said. It's really, we have this danger of a defense mechanism and a self-preservation mechanism. And I think, kind of to talk to what you were saying, Elliot, like to unpack what is people's hesitation to have compassion. The phrase that came to mind was, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And we do, but you can laugh because you can't say, oh, that's everybody, but that is some people, right? That really is. And
I'm definitely that way. I'm that way. Like I resist. I do not like to be controlled by people. I can be very passive aggressive, like I'm not going to be controlled by you, so I'm just not going to participate in whatever you're demanding of me. Like I resist that a lot.
I think. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if you've been around manipulative people, I think some of it depends on what your background was like. So a lot of what I was talking about was stuff I've experienced. I've had people take advantage of me big time. So like that can make you say, well, forget that. I'm not gonna help people anymore because all they want to do is manipulate and take advantage of me. But we have to proceed.
And Chris, I laugh because my uncle used to say that, so it made me laugh. So he used to have a little cigarette in his mouth, like, you give me an inch, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, we prefer the modern, if you give a mouse a cookie, but
I was gonna say, Dave, I guess to everyone that one thing that I noticed, like when Jesus, in all these situations of compassion, is never a prerequisite or some condition in which he has to do it. So he just sees it and does it. So it's not really a lot of, and obviously we're not in his head, but based on what the text is, how it's presented, it's like it's not really this thought of like, well, who are these people? Like, are they doing the right thing, or like maybe they got food at home so they can go home and eat? Like it's really not a lot of conditions in which is really no conditions in which he exacts compassion, but then. Like we just talked about, if you give them an inch and they'll take a mile, we've already processed in our head of like our limitation in which we're going to do it. And with all these situations with Jesus, it's lavish. It's not holding really anything back. So it's really like no prerequisite, and then kind of like no limit on the compassion. So I think so that kind of gets me.
Yeah, that's good. And saying that give them an inch, they'll take them out. That's not defending it. I just think that's trying to get into the head that mindset. And I think it comes to me. I think what I've been thinking about is it's the difference between my life is mission, like you talked about last week, Dave. Like I'll say with friends, like, life is a work truck. You know, it's not a Porsche that you hide away in,
That's so
you know,
good.
behind the glass, and it reaches the, you know, you get to the end of your life and it's pristine. No, you bang it up, you load it up, you know, it's to be used. And I think that's a hard thing to maintain, but that's what Jesus modeled, was my life is for the Father's will, not I'm protecting myself, I'm doing all the right things, and I'm going to sprinkle some compassion when I can. It's like, no, I'm here for a reason, and that reason is bigger than my comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough, like, for all of us, especially when we've had so much comfort, you know, in our life. Some, you know, if you've had it easy, you want
Remember
to
how
protect
comfortable
that,
2019 was?
right?
Man, it was great.
We had toilet paper all day. It was amazing. Yeah.
Another decade. Different decade.
Different decade. Boy. Yeah, there was a phrase a neighbor of mine used to say a lot. No good deed goes unpunished. Have you heard of that one? Did your
Yeah.
uncle ever say that one, Ellie?
No,
Wicked.
they didn't say that one, but I
No
remember
good deed goes
that.
unpunished. Yeah.
So the other thing I'll say, I keep going back to the Good Samaritan and trying to
I love it.
tweak that to the modern feeling. I think we also have cause fatigue, a lot of us, right? This intersectionality thing happens, like every cause is the cause you should care about, from the whales to gender issues
So
to
well.
everything. You know, really,
Turtles,
like
whatever.
everything you have to care about 100%.
Yeah.
So I think so if you tweak the Good Samaritan story there, and the priest was walking past the 200th person lying in the road. What did he do then, right? When maybe he helped the first 199. Did he help right? Like, it's not just the only guy he saw lying in the road. It's the 1,000th person you're being told was lying in the road. That's one way I think we're like, again, we could just clinch up and say, okay, this is the millionth thing I've been told to give $1 billion to and spend all my time marching on. And so that's one thing I think people could feel. And the other thing is, when there's actually antagonism involved, right? Like, we feel this, again, it may just be from afar, it may just be a social media thing, but when you feel like you're being attacked, that's a different story than what we read the Good Samaritan. That's like, no, the robbers in the mountains jump out and say, give me your cloak or take me to an inn, or, you know, and how do you respond to that? And that is a real thing we have to respond to. Again, love your enemies. But I think that's where the Good Samaritan thing could just be like a distant, oh, well, if I saw someone just passively hurt on the side of the road, I might do it. But what this feels like is the robbers jumping out and telling me, give me everything sometimes, right? Like, that I'm your enemy and I'm attacking you and you're in the wrong. And so I think it's just a hard, again, not saying any of that's right and not saying that really should affect how we respond, but I think that's a lot of the gut feeling.
Yeah, I totally get that part. It makes me think of two things, like, well, maybe three, but one thing is that the Good Samaritan, he was already on a road that was dangerous, so so he was already sacrificing, which bring me back to what Dave said on Sunday, was costly. No matter what your gift is, like, it's gonna cost you something. So just having that framework, and then you said it was it could be dangerous, and then the first point was, you could get attacked by other people or whatever, and that made me think of what Dave said and that I've definitely been holding true to throughout this process, of your security in Christ and who you are. So if you are secure in Christ, it's really nothing no one can say to you, because there is no condemnation in Christ, right? So it's like, I know who I am. Like, so it's really nothing you can say to me that's because I know I'm being compassionate, I know I'm being loving, I know I'm listening. I know, I'm asking God to help me with any pride, allow me to be humble, and you're doing all those things and you're secure in that. It's kind of hard then to not be compassionate, but I think it can be very difficult if you're very insecure. If you think someone's going to say something, or you're fearful someone's going to say something, a lot of times you're just not going to deal with it because that fear may overtake you. So
Yeah.
Do you know you're safe?
yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's a lot of what it comes down to. Do you have to build and protect your safety, or are you safe and you can go out and risk? And
Well, and I
That's
think
good.
that's kind of the difference between it being painful and defying common sense, though, right? Like, common sense says don't do the thing that will be painful. That makes
Right.
sense. I think that's how I was connecting it in my brain, because like
Yeah.
there is the
Mhm.
painful part, but then there's also the part of like, well, common sense says don't even do this. So
Yeah.
you want to talk about the second point?
Good
Yeah.
segue.
Like, really good segue.
Well done, well
You
done.
can't call it out, or else then it's no longer a good segue.
Well,
Perfect.
I think the first point was really centered on Jesus. You know, Jesus felt this pain. Jesus felt this gut-wrenching feeling. There's the Greek idiom for compassion, splanchnizomai. So Jesus felt that pain, and then now it's evening, and his disciples are like, "All right, we're done. Let's end this." And then, you know, common sense says we've done enough. We've done all we can do. And Jesus is like, "Nope, we can do more." And so now he's kind of pushing it on them. They're bearing now an even heavier burden. He's roping them in to compassion, to joining him and showing more compassion. Yeah, I love it. I love just their common sense. All right, Jesus, it's evening. We gotta go. You know, like, let's shut it down. We're done. He's like, nope.
And then the two fish. Well, how do you say? Is it fishes? Fish.
King
The two
James
fish.
is fishes. Modern translations, it's fish.
So two fish, and all of a sudden, common sense will tell you that they won't feed everyone,
Yeah.
but then it like multiplies
Yeah.
like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
With Ghost, I know I've said this to you, Dave, before. Is that every time I see Jesus show compassion, it's typically followed up with a miracle. So which I keep harping on compassion in this context, in this cultural context, because I truly believe if we were to be compassionate as a body of believers, we may see miraculous unity that we haven't seen before. Because as we see this walk out with Jesus, that's kind of what happens. So we commit our lives to that, man, miracles may happen.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up. Yeah, because I think we're in a shift culturally, globally, where we're longing for like, what's that post-secular world, you know, we're looking for, and I think more and more as we really are the church, as we really depend on Jesus, we will see him move in amazing ways. We will be amazed at what he does.
Yeah, I agree.
That's good. Can you talk, maybe Dave, about I guess I'm trying to parse compassion defies common sense. Do you mean always? Do you mean often? Because I think what I'm sensing is you address this. There's that messy middle between poverty gospel and prosperity gospel, and so I think even as a Christian, right? So you're completely selfish, self-indulged, hopefully pre-Christ. Common sense is one thing, right? So hopefully when you're not informed by the Spirit or by the Bible, anything, you have a certain kind of common sense that says never do anything for anyone else, look out for number one, okay? But then there's this journey we go through as we're learning to follow Christ that says yes, okay, start thinking of others ahead of yourself, you know, as more important than yourself. And you start to be informed by that, and so you start developing hopefully a kind of a new common sense. But even you're kind of weaving this in, like, give only what you have to give. And I'm the type of personality that says, who cares what you got to give? Keep giving, go burn yourself down, you know. And so does that make sense? Like, there is still common sense involved sometimes. Sometimes God calls you to just do something utterly ridiculous, healing.
I'd add or
how do
counter
you
to
do
that
Yeah.
some too that
Yeah.
non-Christians are some of the most compassionate people
Yes.
too, though. So how does that work? Like, how do they beat us in
non-Christians.
compassion? Yeah, I
Some,
mean, obviously.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, but I think I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think Chris, to answer your question, and I'm not saying this for everyone, but I think in Christianity we can get some Christianity we can get so like in the sky on philosophy that we add that type of stuff to the gospel, and then when culture happens, it prevents us from being uncomfortable compassionate. Because right now I've seen this swell of like this fear of cultural Marxism, And so people keep pressing that. That ideology obviously is, ideology in and of itself is bad, but because I believe it's not preached right from the pulpit, then it allows a lot of Christians to then back away from it. So you have a lot of different things going on now that is all these different voices are informing believers, and it's not just the Bible. And so that's the part that's kind of like frustrating, is that it's so many voices on either it's politics, either it's philosophy, either it's this, and without just looking at a text like this and saying, you know what, I'm just going to be compassionate. It has nothing to do with any of that. Like, you know, so to me, that's what I've seen. I've seen it like in this context, you have 5,000 men. If we were to say that today, then it would be like, wait, are the 5,000 men oppressed? Why would I? No, they're oppressed. Like what? They can feed themselves. Like, won't they get a job? Like, why am I feeding them? So we have some of that type of language because of different philosophies that's being brought in in an attempt to be do the right thing of saying, look, we have to be careful of ideologies. We don't want that to influence the gospel, but at the same time, not doing it in such a way that it prevents people from doing the gospel out of fear that they're living up to an ideology. So that's what I've seen. I don't know about you guys, but that's been my experience over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think. I think maybe I could restate that as just step out in faith, just do the thing, and trust Jesus to do something with it. I think what you were saying though, Chris, about how the tendency to overdo it and burn yourself out, I tried to address that in the first point, that we don't want to confuse compassion and pain. Compassion is often painful and costly, but the pain and the cost is not the same thing as the compassion. So if I'm burning myself out, I'm not going to be able to help anybody. You know what I mean? Like if I kill myself, then I'm done. So to me, so that's common sense, and that's okay. So so it doesn't defy common sense in the sense of we're purposefully going to do everything upside down and backwards like Bizarro World. You know, like it doesn't mean that.
Yeah, right.
It just means sometimes Jesus calls us to do more than we can do, and we're like, well, Jesus, let's have a talk about that. You know, I really tried to put it in context of prayer. All right, Jesus, this is all I got. This is what I have. So for you, you know, like you might say, Jesus, I have this bad habit of working too many hours and having nothing left for my family. But I feel like you're calling me to serve. What should I do? And then as you're talking about that with Jesus, he might give you clarity. Like, okay, we'll give this much and then stop, or, you know, whatever it is. And so I think that can be worked out in that conversation with Jesus. You know, like literally to me, the handing of the loaves and fishes to Jesus is a beautiful picture of prayer. Like that should be our daily prayer. All right, Jesus, I've got, 16 hours today to do 27 hours of work. What do you have for me? You know, like, what do you want me to do? Can we cut something out? Should I do more? Should I do less? You know, and I think having that sense of this doesn't seem like it's going to work, but I'm going to be honest with you about Jesus. I think that conversation with Jesus is what I was really trying to push people towards. But not, to be clear, not pursue the anti-common sense method every time. You know, I think that,
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think that's what I'm trying to nug down on a little bit, because that is a really important conversation. I think as you're talking, maybe my summary might be common sense doesn't trump the voice of Jesus, or you need to submit your common sense to the voice of Jesus, because I think wisdom it's that's what I was trying to get at. You're not saying do compassion mindlessly, or do compassion without any wisdom, and don't worry about in what way you do it, and don't worry when or how. That's not what you're saying. You're saying that God can call you whenever he wants you to do something that trumps your common sense. That word's been ruined, but sorry. the compassion that I lost my train of thought, but that's what I'm trying to say. I think that's important, because you do have, I mean, really, honestly, to just really nail it down, you do have this idea like the book When Helping Hurts, right? And so there is a conversation that you need to have along the way that's saying, how do I really help? Am I really helping? Is the thing that I'm just gut stirred to do, is that actually good? or not.
Mhm.
And again, you
Mhm.
submit that to the voice of Jesus through His Word by His Spirit. So
Yeah.
maybe that's what I was trying to get at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and at the beginning of the sermon, also, I started off with, if you read all of the gospel stories, you see a Jesus who doesn't heal every person every time.
That's true.
Clearly, his friend was murdered. He went to hide.
Mhm.
Clearly, I'd say, as a model of, you know what, if your friend is murdered, maybe you need to go away and, go take a quiet retreat with your wife and grieve or something, And then in this instance, it was interrupted, and he still showed compassion. So he's a model of showing compassion even when it's painful. But there are plenty of times when he's just like, nope, I'm out of here. See you later. So, so Jesus lives both. And I think the answer is the supernatural walking with the Spirit and prayer life. I don't think the answer is a code. I don't think we have a code where we can, figure it out in every system. Here's my formula. This many hours plus this much pain minus this much command from Jesus equals this is what I do.
That's good. It's good.
It reminded me, Dave. I think it's in Mark. I want to say when Jesus, after he healed I think the first chapter, when he heals many people, and then one of the disciples, they come back like, hey man, the people are like ready, man, come back and heal them. He's like, I gotta go preach the gospel. Like that's what I came to do. So he doesn't even heal those people that were getting riled up. So it just kind of shows you that he was following the Spirit, and so it kind of, that definitely kind of now makes me understand like what you were saying, Chris, about man, how do you kind of do that? So you're just not over, I guess, like it's just exhausting yourself.
Yeah.
Just trying to do everything.
And I think knowing, again, that's common sense, biblical wisdom to know your limits. I think that's totally cool. I think in this story, he's saying he can do more than what your common sense can accomplish. That doesn't mean throw it out the window, and again, I was trying to say, hey, you got gifts. If I'm really good at counseling, but I'm really bad at administration, and I see a need, I'm going to network you with an administrator, but I'll do the counseling. You know what I mean? Like, I'll do the thing I can do and I'm good at. That's going to be less painful for me and for you if I try to help you with stuff I'm not good at, So I do think there's a lot of freedom to, use our gifts. And here, it's like, okay, here are the gifts. Here are the resources. They've got this. It's not enough. All right, Jesus, this is what I got. You give it over to Jesus.
You got music, Chris. You have music.
I think sometimes though we are definitely called to do things we're not good at though. Kind of making it sound like, well, do what you're good at and don't worry about the other parts. But
right,
I don't know about that.
Again, I'm just saying. But my first point, I said, don't get it backwards. Don't say, my job is to do the most painful thing possible. I'm like, no, that's not the job. The job is to show compassion. So if the emergency need is, I'm going to mop the floor, and I'll do that, After being married almost 30 years, I can kind of fix things around the house now. My wife was saying that the other day. She's like, wow, it's amazing. You can fix things. And it's like, it's so, she was so impressed. I was terrible at that when I was a young man. So you stretch and grow and learn things. You get better at things too.
I do like the idea of the illustration you put up. And I definitely agree with Joe as well, I just trying to think of things in history. I've seen people take their talent. Like if you were a lawyer, then all of a sudden they say, well, you know what? I'm going to use my law degree and my law skills to help this community or that community. Or I'm going to use, I was teasing Chris about music, but I've seen people actually use music because that's an outlet, especially in my community, that can be an outlet of pain. And so I've seen talented people say, well, you know what? I'm just going to do music to speak to my people. And literally remove themselves from being mainstream just to be more involved in the community. So I've seen that locally, like when I was growing up, and where people purposely didn't go mainstream so they could be more local, but they were using their gifts to uplift people. So I think it's like a both and thing that can be really powerful with that. Because the things that you're not good at, man, if you step out on faith, God can use that.
Yeah. And back to what Joey was saying too, like in the church we say, hey, we need someone to help out with X, and we just need somebody. We're not saying we need the world's best or the most gifted person, I think a lot of times you just got to jump in and help, whether you're good at it or not.
There's a I don't know if this is helpful to anybody out there, but a thing, kind of an exercise I've walked through with some people, and usually this was talking about long-term calling kind of stuff, so it's a little bit of a different conversation. But there's this acronym PANT, like as the deer pants for water. You know, but it's this matrix of, and this collision of passion, ability, need, and time. And I think what we run against when we're trying to say, God, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? Sometimes like a few of those work together. So it's like, I'm passionate about this, and there's a need, so I'm going to dive in. But you know what? I might not have the ability, so I need to work on the ability to actually help. Or sometimes, one or two of those may be missing. And I think this conversation, what it was stirring in my head was not to shut down when those things are missing. One of those things. So you might have the ability to do it. There's a need there, and you've got time. It's a good time to do it, but you're not feeling passionate about it. And sometimes God just says, "Go, do it now." Same thing. Like you might have passion and the ability, but there's not a need. And again, that might be a bad time to dive in. Sometimes people try to force that. I'm like, I'm passionate, I can do it, and nobody's asking me to do it. And so I'm going to use that. I'm still going to do that to serve. And, so I think that's just an interesting, those are some interesting key points that again, maybe that's falling too much on common sense. Again, through prayer, God could say, don't worry about those four things at all. But I do think those are things that I've watched, keep an eye on that, right? Maybe you just have time to wazoo in some season of life, and it doesn't matter if you have passion or ability, but there's a need, right? Like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go do it, right?
Yeah.
This floor needs washing. It doesn't matter if I'm passionate about it or not.
Right.
So anyway, I don't know if that's helpful to anybody, but rattling around in my brain.
I think that's good. Yeah, I think a lot of the big projects I've been a part of, it was 3 out of 4. It was usually not all 4.
Yeah. It's rarely all 4, but also it's a good thing to keep an eye on. Like sometimes I see God use common sense to say, you have the passion and the ability, and there's the need, but you don't have the time. This is a bad season of life for you. You've got tiny babies, and you just need to love on them, and so sometimes that's just a comfort of like, just wait for the time. God will bring it up, stuff like that. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we're in a new season of life with grown kids, and fall semester was praying about it and thinking like, okay, I think I need to get more involved in city life, understand the city council, I don't know how the city works, that kind of stuff. And then we did some of that through our concerns about human trafficking in the city. So we've kind of been working on that over the last couple of years vaguely, but just was wanting to do more of it. And then in the new year with COVID, things kind of got shut down. We're not doing anything. And then with concerns about policing and criminal justice, it made me think about it again. Like, oh yeah, that was the thing I wanted to get more involved in. So I went to a city council meeting, for my first city council meeting the other night, and like, all right, that's a new thing. But maybe not my talent, but it's like I have time now. When my kids were younger, I was involved in the community through like coaching sports and school things, and now it's like, well, they're gone, so I can do city things, So yeah, it's weird. It's weird to go through those transitions where you have different time allotments as well.
Yeah.
Third point. Compassion overflows.
Yes.
Verse 19 through 21.
I like that.
So this was your quickest point. Maybe you could re-summarize it for us, and then we could go from there.
Yeah. So compassion is painful. I said don't fall into the poverty gospel. It's painful, but that's not the point. In this one, compassion overflows. Like there's real blessing when we show compassion. And Jesus, showed that to the disciples with the overflowing of the leftovers, which now that we've talked about it, we think may not have been half-eaten leftovers, maybe brand new, magically multiplied loaves and fish. But anyway, there was an overflow, right? There was this abundance that came out of them being hassled. And I was trying to say, again, watch out for the prosperity gospel. That's not like an automatic guarantee. Every time you show this much compassion, you will get this much blessing in return. But it was a really beautiful encouragement from Jesus. And I think we get those along the way, in our in our journey with Jesus, he'll give us those shots in the arm, those encouragements that are like, keep going, you can do this. And I think as we understand it, that ultimate reward is in heaven. And so we're really looking to the ultimate reward of seeing Jesus face to face. That's by definition what heaven is just, the place of God, being with Jesus. That's really what we're looking forward to. But there are rewards now. That's definitely in the Bible. There are rewards. There are blessings now for obedience, for following Jesus. And this is one of those where he's like, you're going to be okay. Like, see, I'm taking care of you, And so I think that's a good encouragement that we're not gonna die necessarily by showing compassion, even though Jesus did. But that's another story.
Now, Dave, in relation to the prosperity gospel, I guess I had a question about. So I guess like when we read the story, it seems like the blessing is not coming towards you. It's coming towards the people that's receiving the compassion. So it's like with prosperity gospel, it seems like it's more emphasis placed on I do and I get, but this is something that's like I do and what I'm doing is being magnified to this person. So I get so I was trying to process that as well, like because I don't know if it's in prosperity gospel do they teach like if I give, then this $5 is going to be like $100 to this person. Typically, it's like if I give $5, God is going to give me $100
back to me. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and that's part of what Paul's discussion of, and it's in 2 Corinthians 9 about giving and how he uses the planting and reaping, and it's interesting because you could take that in a prosperity gospel way if you wanted to, and that's how prosperity gospel teachers take it.
Right.
But the rest of Scripture kind of destroys your ability to do that. So I would interpret it as Jesus saying, as you sow seeds, as you give, there's going to be a spiritual harvest that's going to come out of that, right? Like God's going to grow spiritual fruit. There might be spiritual fruit in your life. There might be spiritual fruit in someone else's life. But that long-term kingdom project is the point, right? The point is not my physical blessing next week, which is how it often gets interpreted. So yeah, I think it's a multiplied blessing, and we get to enjoy that, see it, participate in it, maybe.
That's what encouraged me.
Yeah, I mean, seeing ministry fruit is so encouraging, and we don't even always get to see it, right? Like we might not know of everything the Lord has done with a spiritual conversation or an encouragement or an act of compassion. We may not know that until, the new heavens and the new earth, but often we do get to see it, and this is one of those examples. Here, they got to see some tangible encouragement and blessing.
Sweet.
Silence.
I don't think I had it all.
Our brains are empty.
No.
No mas.
I think that's the thing. Maybe another way to say it. It's interesting how your capacity to care grows as you exercise that. I mean, we know that's true of like real exercising your body. Your capacity to, so as you work, your capacity to work grows. As you love, your capacity to love grows. So that's maybe that. I don't know if that's exactly what you're hinting at, but I think that's true, right? We see that it's like kind of a learned thing. I'm always amazed by parenting. I always have great compassion. We have 4 kids, but I still have great compassion on people with their first kid because it's so huge and so hard and so different. And then as you add on kid after kid after kid, you're thinking, well, I'm going to run out. I'm going to run out of love. But it doesn't happen.
You should write a song about that.
No.
He did. It's awesome, Elliot. You should hear it.
Oh, wow. Okay, I got to check it
Very
out.
good. How God just gives you more love.
Yeah. So I mean, that's an interesting dynamic to know going into a new moment of compassion. Is this may be the hardest time? Might be the first time I do it, but if I stay in the fight, God can build that muscle to to have more to give rather than less. So instead of thinking, instead of the scarcity thing of, if I give anything right now, right? If I give them an inch, they're going to take my mile and it's going to be gone. Instead of that, saying, prayerfully saying, God, can you keep giving me more to give? Can you keep filling me up so I can be poured out?
Yeah. I thought this really encouraged me, man. Every time I think about it, as you were preaching, it was just like, I can give what I have and in faith, and God himself is going to multiply this blessing. And it really doesn't have anything to do with me necessarily. I'm just offering up my gift. I'm offering up what the Lord or what the Holy Spirit has put in my heart. And then he has then taken that baton and just like making it sprout. And I think for me, that was like, now I can breathe. I don't feel like I have to do everything. I don't feel like I have to, have all the right words or all the right actions. I can just offer whatever the Lord has put on my heart, and he himself is going to magnify that into people's lives. Yeah. So that helps me.
Good. God makes it grow.
Yes. Corinthians. Yeah. Oh, and then the next point, move towards people in their pain. Man. So it's a level when you said that, it just made me think of like when you talk about compassion, it has to be a level of intentionality with it. Like, it's not passive. Like, it actually does it moves towards someone and not retreat or just kind of, I've heard that a lot. Like, well, the Lord puts it on my heart, then I help him. It's like, you see they're hurting, like, just help them.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Just move.
Yeah.
Just move towards them. So that got me kind of fired up, of that intentionality with compassion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a guy choking at a restaurant several years ago, and I remember thinking like, oh, wait, he's choking, So I remember standing up, and there's like three of us, like in tables nearby. We all kind of stood up, and we're kind of like watching, like, is this really happening? Is he really choking? And we're kind of like slowly moving towards him. Then the manager of the restaurant like swoops in, grabs him, does the Heimlich, saves the guy. So the manager just acted quickly, but it was just a weird memory of there's a lot of moments like that where you kind of are hesitatingly moving towards an emergency, thinking, is this really an emergency? Like you're trying to kind of figure it out. And that's what I think of is so often we're not really sure, we're confused, we're kind of assessing it as we're moving in, but yeah, we move in that direction. You just start taking steps towards that thing that you see, whatever that tragedy is.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the manager of the restaurant will beat you to it.
Any other thoughts, ideas?
You went back to your to Romans for your conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
This time in the beginning of chapter 12, which I love that you talked about mercy, and that by the mercies of God that he himself is just like, and now we get to present our bodies that way, and now we get to have that same groaning when we see pain in other people. So I love that you ended with that. It's pretty cool.
That was actually a new one for me. So you're asking if there's something exciting or new about my study of compassion. So realizing that is one of those guts words of compassion. I never really made the association, because the one that's used more often for Jesus is splagnidzomai. So this other one, like Tirmon, was less familiar with it. And I was like, oh, that's another guts word for compassion. That's the mercies of God there. So that was new. That was cool. I hadn't realized that before.
It's so good.
God's guts.
I like that.
So, have anything else? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, man, now it's time to act. Go be compassionate. There's really no excuse.
Go.
Once you hear the word, you have to do the word.
Yes.
Do you guys see the benediction that I think it just started circling around, but it's by Bishop Woody White? Did you see that going around?
Mm-mm.
How about I end by reading it?
Okay, sweet.
It's a gutsy one. Get ready
Let's
to
do
get your
it.
guts
I like
stirred.
gutsy.
All right, it says, "And now may the Lord torment you. May the Lord keep before you the faces of the hungry, the lonely, the rejected, and the despised. May the Lord afflict you with pain for the hurt, the wounded, the oppressed, the abused, the victims of violence. May God grace you with a burning thirst for justice and righteousness. May the Lord give you courage and strength and compassion to make ours a better world, to make your community a better community, to make your church a better church. May you do your best to make it so, and after you have done your best, may the Lord
Do more.
grant you peace."
That's good. Man, I'm at to ask you for that one, man.
I'll send it
Like
your way.
it. May the
Yeah.
Lord torment you.
I know, and afflict you. I was like,
And
oof,
afflict you.
oof.
Chuck's-
In
Chuck's
preaching, we used to
Swindoll told that
say,
us.
yeah, as I say, our job is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Chuck Swindoll said when I first went to seminary, he's like, I hope that the Lord torments you the whole time you're in seminary, because if he does, then you won't leave seminary thinking you all that.
Mhm.
Keeping it humble.
Well, thanks, guys, for being here and hanging out. We'll see all of you probably before this, but the rest of you we'll see on Sunday for our live streams and some of our in-person stuff on Sunday. We don't really have anything going on before that, I don't think, but we'll see y'all. Well, I mean, small groups and things throughout the week, but
I'm preaching this Sunday.
Oh, yeah. Southern Hills.
Southern Hills Baptist Church.
Southern Hills Baptist Church and Kempner. Kempner or Coppers Cove?
Kempner.
Kempner.
Pray for me.
Yeah,
in
man.
person or live streaming?
In person.
All right.
All right. Well, wear
Be
your
careful.
mask. All
Wash your
y'all, wear
hands.
your masks.
How y'all?
Wash your hands, you sinners. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. If you made it this far, good work. We will talk to y'all next week.
Adios.